My mother-in-law banned me from her birthday party, so I cancelled it. Now she's crying. I'm 26, and I've been married to my husband, 29, for almost 3 years. From the very beginning, his family has never really liked me. He has 2 younger twin sisters, 23, and a younger brother, 21, and none of them have ever warmed up to me. The same goes for my mother-in-law. I never understood why, but I really wanted to fix it. So, when my mother-in-law's 50th birthday was coming up, I decided to throw her a big party. I thought it would be the perfect way to bond and finally get on her good side. My husband warned me against it. He told me his family wasn't interested in having a relationship with me, so I shouldn't go out of my way to win them over. But I didn't listen. I'm the kind of person who hates being disliked for no reason, and I was determined to change things. I started planning everything and even tried to get my husband's siblings involved, but they couldn't have cared less. They told me if I wanted to throw a party, I could handle it myself. So I did. I booked a restaurant she used to love going to with her late husband. I paid for the food, decorations, and venue out of my own pocket. I carefully chose everything to match her tastes, knowing she was particular about details. I even invited her closest friends and some family members after checking with my husband about who she'd want there. Her own kids? They did absolutely nothing. The day before her birthday, my husband and I went to visit her. He wasn't thrilled about going, but I insisted. When we arrived, her other kids were already there. They looked surprised to see us but didn't say much. After some small talk, I told her about the party and that we'd be expecting her at the restaurant the next evening. At first, she smiled and thanked my husband until he told her it was my idea. That's when her whole attitude changed. I explained how I'd invited her friends, planned everything according to her tastes, and made sure it would be special for her. Instead of appreciating it, she gave me a fake, sugary sweet thank you before dropping a bombshell: she wouldn't be attending. I was completely shocked. When I asked why, she said she wanted a family-only celebration. And while she considered her friends to be like family, I was not. She told me, to my face, that she didn't see me as part of the family and that I should make myself scarce. I was stunned. My husband and I just sat there, speechless. Meanwhile, his siblings looked like they were holding back laughter. That was the moment I realized my husband had been right all along. I should never have wasted my time trying to win these people over. Angry and humiliated, I stood up and told her she could go to hell. I made it very clear that if she dared to show up at the party, I'd have security kick her out. That wiped the smug looks off their faces real quick. She gasped and told me I was being cruel. I just laughed and told her it was funny hearing that from her. She tried to backtrack, acting all innocent, but I wasn't having it. I told her she didn't deserve anything nice, and that was final. As we left, she started crying, probably hoping I'd feel bad. But I didn't. I was furious. On the way home, I tried to cancel the reservation, but it was too late. My husband, though clearly uncomfortable, said I had done the right thing. He didn't say much else. He's never been the type to get involved in family drama. Since I had already paid for everything, I decided to cancel the original guest list and invite my own friends instead. My husband joined in and even invited a few of his friends. We had a great time, took down all the decorations before our guests arrived, and made the most of the night. The next morning, I posted some pictures from the party. That's when my sister-in-law texted me, furious. She said I had ruined their mom's birthday and was selfish for using the venue for myself, knowing how much it meant to her. But honestly, I don't feel bad at all. I think I did what anyone else would have done. After getting that message from my sister-in-law, I asked my husband if I should apologize. He shut that idea down immediately. In fact, he told me he was done with them. This was a big deal because his family relied on him financially, especially his mother. My husband is successful and runs his own company, while his siblings can't hold a job for more than a few months. Cutting them off meant they would actually have to take care of themselves for once. I tried to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't budge. That's when I started to wonder if there was more to this than I knew. Over the years, I had noticed that his family had slowly distanced themselves from him. By the time we got married, they barely had a relationship with him. I had a feeling there was a deeper reason behind it all. After pushing him for answers, my husband finally told me everything. When his dad passed away, my husband was just 21. His mother had never worked a day in her life, and his siblings were still in school. He had no choice but to step up and take care of them. At first, they were grateful. But as he started making more money, they became entitled. They never even tried to be independent because they knew he would always provide. On top of that, they treated every girlfriend he had like garbage. They saw any woman in his life as a threat, someone who would take his attention and money away from them. When he met me, and they realized I wasn't someone they could push away, they resented me. They even tried to convince him to break up with me. When that didn't work, they started guilt-tripping him and keeping their distance while still demanding financial support. The birthday party was the final straw. His mother didn't just try to guilt-trip me. She called him after the party and demanded that he leave me because I had insulted her. That was it for him. He decided he was done. Today, my husband finally made the call. He told his mother he was done supporting them and that they needed to figure things out on their own. He said unless they changed their ways, he wanted nothing to do with them. The meltdown on the other end of the call was insane. I could hear his mother screaming through the phone, even though he wasn't on speaker. She immediately blamed me, saying I had brainwashed him into cutting them off. She accused me of trying to break their family apart and said he shouldn't let himself be manipulated by his wife. The irony of her saying that was honestly hilarious. The argument was intense, but my husband didn't back down. For the first time, he put himself first. And honestly, I couldn't be prouder. After years of being used, he finally saw them for who they really were. And I have no regrets. Obviously, my husband defended me the best he could. He even told his mother that his siblings needed to get real jobs because they were all adults now, and it was beyond pathetic that they still relied on him financially. But instead of taking responsibility, my mother-in-law turned it around on him. She accused him of letting his success get to his head and claimed I was the one encouraging him to cut ties with his family. According to her, that was the only explanation for why he was being so cruel to his own blood. Classic manipulation. Emotional blackmail. Just another desperate attempt to keep him under her thumb. But that wasn't happening anymore. When I saw my husband getting overwhelmed, his face red with frustration, his eyes watery, I stepped in. I told her his mind was made up, and if she and her other kids didn't straighten up, they'd lose his support forever. The ball was in their court now. They could either act like decent human beings and respect us, or they could keep being the greedy, selfish leeches they'd always been, and get cut off for good. Then I hung up. I muted all notifications on my husband's phone so he wouldn't have to deal with their nonsense for a while. We needed a break. We spent the next few hours unwinding, watching a movie, and just trying to distract ourselves. Apparently, ruining my husband's day wasn't enough. My mother-in-law decided to come after me next. When the movie ended, my husband went to finish up some work while I checked my phone. I had several missed calls from her and countless texts, full of curse words, insults, and just straight-up vile comments. His siblings had joined in too, sending me the nastiest messages they could come up with. I wasn't surprised. This was exactly what I expected. I took screenshots of everything for later and ignored them. But then, as I was replying to some emails, my mother-in-law called again, and this time, I accidentally answered. The moment I picked up, she unleashed. She called me manipulative. A gold digger. A homewrecker. She accused me of ruining her son's life. She insulted my upbringing, my character, and basically everything about me. I let her rant. I didn't interrupt. I just sat there, listening, waiting for her to run out of steam. When she finally did, I calmly told her that everything she had accused me of doing was exactly what she was guilty of. If anyone had spent years manipulating my husband and draining him dry, it was her and her other kids. I told her I was glad my husband was finally cutting the freeloaders out of his life. Because honestly, they didn't even deserve to breathe the same air as him. Then I hung up and blocked her. Blocked his siblings, too. Everywhere. No more calls. No more texts. Nothing. At this point, it was just sad how low they were willing to stoop to avoid taking responsibility for their own lives. I didn't tell my husband about the call right away. He was already stressed enough, and I didn't want to add to it. But if she tried this again? Oh, I'd make sure she was completely cut out of our lives. They had zero right to disturb our peace. And something told me my mother-in-law wasn't going to stop until we made it official. Almost 2 weeks have passed since my last update, and a lot has happened. That night, after blocking his family, my husband and I had dinner and went to bed, hoping for some peace. Yeah, that didn't last long. The next morning, my mother-in-law showed up at our house with her 3 grown children. They were furious, demanding an explanation for everything that had happened. She looked livid. So did my husband's siblings. And I knew this was about to be exhausting. I stayed in the room despite their protests. They immediately tried to tell me I had no right to be there because this was a family matter. I laughed and reminded them they were standing in my house. They were the ones intruding. So they didn't get to decide anything. Then they turned on my husband. They bombarded him with accusations, calling him selfish, ungrateful, a traitor to his own family. They said he was abandoning them just to keep me happy. I could see my husband shutting down. His face was red. His hands were shaking. He wasn't saying anything, just taking it all in. And that's when I knew I had to step in. My husband is a kind man. A sensitive man. He loves his family genuinely, even though they've done nothing but take advantage of him. And because of that, he struggles to stand up to them. He hates conflict, even when he's in the right. So I fought for him. I told them they were nothing but leeches, pathetic freeloaders who had the audacity to attack the very person who had been supporting them for years. I made it clear that they were the real gold diggers, not me. They didn't work, they didn't contribute, and yet they demanded money while treating my husband like trash. They were stunned. Silent. Probably for the first time in their lives. Taking advantage of that, I told them to get out before I called the cops. They hesitated, but eventually, they left. Of course, my mother-in-law had to get the last word. She told my husband that if his father were still alive, he would be disappointed in him. That was low. And when they finally drove away, my husband broke down. He sobbed, full-on, heart-wrenching sobs. And I just held him, letting him get it all out. That night, I blocked his family from everything, his phone, his social media. I knew this wasn't over. They were desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. Turns out, we were right to prepare for the worst. A few days later, my mother-in-law sent us a legal notice. She accused my husband of stealing money from them after his father's death to start his business. She was demanding an insane amount of money as compensation. It was disgusting. My husband had never taken a single dollar from his father's estate. He built his company entirely on his own. But his mother and siblings were so desperate to keep him under their control that they were willing to destroy his reputation with lies. And because my husband's company was huge, the accusations got people talking. His business took a hit. But we fought back. We got our lawyers involved, gathered every piece of evidence, and within 2 weeks, we completely proved them wrong. Not a single word of their claims was true. And you know what happened next? They had to pay us a massive fine for trying to defame him. Last I heard, my mother-in-law and her kids had been ostracized by the rest of the extended family. Now, those lazy idiots are scrambling to find jobs, because, for the first time in their lives, they actually have to pay their own bills. Karma, right? As for us? We're finally free. No more manipulation. No more freeloaders. No more drama. Just me, my husband, and our peace. And I intend to keep it that way. Forever.